And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. Let's welcome international champion and legendary Husker. We say hi to Jason Peter. At Jason Peter on Twitter is where you find him. JP, good to spend a few minutes. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. How are you doing?
We're good. It is Nebraska-Colorado week, a little bit earlier in the season, but we're kind of used to that. And I wanted to touch base with you and get your thoughts on a few things. But first and foremost, this rivalry, what's it mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a couple games on the schedule that, you know, you used to kind of circle prior to the season starting, and Colorado was always one of them. I know there's the lifelong argument as to whether or not Colorado's a rival or not, and, you know, without question, it's my belief, and I think most players, if you ask, that it is a rival. You know, it's a different type of rival than, say, Oklahoma. Colorado, it's fueled by hatred. That's pretty much the bottom line. There's not a ton of respect there between the two programs, which is, you know, the total opposite of the Nebraska-Oklahoma rivalry. But, anything that gets, you know, the blood boiling the way that Colorado can, you know, it usually indicates you're headed towards a rivalry.
What was it that ticked you and some of your teammates off about Colorado when it was game time? Was it their attitude? Was it their persona? I mean, what was it that...
Yeah, I think you could do, you know, all the above kind of, you know, it was usually a roster that was filled with, obviously we didn't have the star system back then, but there were always, you know, 4- and 5-star kids. I mean, they had Pipeline back in California. You know, they always had a lot of Cali kids on the roster, and they had good players. I mean, there's no argument there. You know, some of those teams, I mean, the 94 Colorado team was basically like a who's who of college football. Great. So, you know, that was part of it, obviously knowing that there was equal, if not better, talent on the other side of the ball. That kind of, you know, drove the rivalry. Obviously, the closeness, I think, you know, to just, you know, we're just a short drive away from being in the Rocky Mountain State. And, you know, just some of the things that they did. You always hear stories, and I know they kind of, there's a little a cut-up coming out now of one of their coaches talking about, you know, not having any red on. I don't want any red in the building. And that was the old Bill McCartney deal where, you know, he didn't want anything red in the supermarkets. He didn't want anyone wearing any sort of red clothing. And that stuff, especially for us, you know, where we had been so dominant, you know, in the series, it was comical, but it also kind of, you know, fueled the fire to, you know, we were sitting there thinking, geez, you know, we've never lost to these guys. They're acting like it's a coin toss, you know, like it's 50-50. You know, we've won 10, they've won 10 sort of deal. And obviously that wasn't the case. But it was they were kind of everything that we weren't. You know, like they were about showboating. They were about kind of, you know, the glitz, the glamour, and we were just kind of, you know, blue collar kids. We went to work every day, and our leader was by any means, you know, it wasn't flashy, but you know, there were just a lot of elements I think that go into it when you're talking about games that are you know, rivals.
Jason Peters with us here at Hail Varsity Radio. And Jason, it's funny you talk about the glitz and the glamour of Colorado and the blue-collar nature of Nebraska, because as much as things change in college football, some things stay the same. And I think from the outside looking in, that is one of the stories of the game on Saturdays. Nebraska is a little bit more blue-collar in the Big Ten, and Dion, he's brought the Louis, he's brought the glitz and the glamour back to Boulder. And I want to get your thoughts on just this rivalry now in 2023, with that still being the case. We were discussing yesterday on the show, is Saturday going to be business or is Saturday going to be personal? And Deion said it himself yesterday that it's personal for him. And from you just now talking about Colorado, I think you took that rivalry personally too. And what do you want to see from Nebraska on Saturday? Do you want to see that business, the buttoned-up nature, a little more cool, calm, and collected, or do you want Saturday to be personal?
It's always got to be business, when you step out on the field. When you start making emotional decisions and stuff based off of, how much adrenaline you got pumping through you, chances are things aren't going to work out the way that you want them to. So, a lot of that stuff is all, the hype and a lot of it's just pregame sort of banter and stuff like that. But, once the ball is kicked, you got to get down to business and you got to execute, and everybody's got a job to do, and you got to make sure that, you take care of your job and your responsibility on each and every play. So, yeah, it's all fun and games, and, it's personal for this and that, whatever reason. He's never really – Deion knew about it. Obviously, at the time when he was in college, Nebraska was, one of the top-tier teams, and Colorado was certainly trying to get there. But, to be somebody that's gone through it, I still think back to, the trips we used to make out to Boulder and the way that you get treated. The people ask me about how the stadium is, and I tell them, just sit in a chair and turn around and imagine that there was a chair right behind you, and that's the first row of seats right there. That's how close they are, and they're right on top of you. So there are definitely conversations that can be had, and we used to try to ignore and avoid those conversations, at least when the game was at hand, or until we had it at hand. You kind of have to keep that focus. But, once we kind of would build the lead, then some of those, those guys that are yelling from the fifth and sixth row about how they kick your ass and this and that, then you can start to respond to them. But you got to make sure that business is taken care of first. Anybody
try and take you up on the threat as far as them lobbing those threats at you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, all the time. I mean, we went out there in 97, and I had a guy that was sitting 3 or 4 rows back, and he just did not stop. From the moment we went out there, he was just on me nonstop. And he happened to be sitting there, I think, with his daughter, which probably not the best time to talk trash to somebody, because at some point in the game, once we kind of, we felt comfortable with where we were, I turned around and I responded to one of his comments, and my response had to do with his daughter. So it probably didn't go in his favor. To my defense, everybody around that was sitting around after I said what I said, which is not repeatable on air, probably. Everybody in the immediate area was like, "Oh!" And then they all looked at the guy and they were like, "Well, you started it, so you got what was coming, And I didn't hold anything back with him. Let's just say that.
Jason Peters with us here, Hail Varsity Radio, Nebraska-Colorado. The showdown in Boulder on Saturday, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. JP, just a thought on Nebraska's defense, specifically up front, Ty Robinson, the polar bear, and also the other side of the ball with Nebraska's run game. Are you confident Nebraska can make a jump from week 1 to week 2? I know that's a talking point, and teams get better. I thought the defense played well when we were watching them in Minneapolis last week.
Yeah, I thought they tackled really well, which obviously, if you want to be a good defense, you got to be able to tackle. I didn't see a lot of busts, from the naked eye without really knowing, what they were calling exactly and what kind of coverage and stuff like that. Without knowing everybody's responsibilities, it's hard to say, one way or the other. But anytime you hold a team to, under 2 touchdowns, whatever the final was, what the final end up being?
13-10.
13-10, yeah. So, you're reaching your goal at that point. But, people coming out after this week of watching, Colorado win. And I believe that Dion would get it right out there, just knowing the guys that he has on staff and knowing just the type of competitor that he is. For people, and maybe it's part of his plan, they'll get caught up in prime time and, all that stuff. But at the heart of it, Dion knows what he's doing, and Dion knows football, and he knows winning football. So he kind of, had a good feeling that they were going to be good, but by no means is this game not winnable. If Nebraska just does not shoot themselves in the foot, if they don't turn the ball over, if they do the little things right, you can win this game. The thing that they need to do, you need to be more physical. When you walk off that field, when the final seconds have walked off the field, and you know whether or not you got the best of the guy that lined up across from you. If you get all, 22 guys walking off the field saying, I kicked that dude's ass, there's a good chance that we can win this game. If you keep the game in between the tackles and you keep it on the ground, then I think Nebraska's got a shot, and you're tougher than them, then I think you got a shot. If you're going to try to score with them, then I think it's an uphill battle. They've just got speed on the edge that we don't necessarily have maybe at this point. But like I said, by no means, this game, we can go out and we can come back with a victory.
Are you rolling in? Are you going into enemy territory? Are you going out to Boulder?
You got to. Your boys are going out there to play. You got to go. You know that their sidelines are going to be filled, right? They're going to have all the guys out there. They're all going to be Cordell. I'm sure they'll all be lining the. You never know when things go down, Schmitty. You got to be laced up and ready to go.
Is Cordell going to run from you?
Well, I don't know. We're probably about the same size now, but yeah, no, wouldn't that be great, huh? Just to get the old rivalry going again. Just a halftime brawl at midfield between all the former guys that played.
That'd be pretty awesome. Fox wouldn't say no.
Might have to save that one for pay-per-view.
Why not? Jason Peter. Jason, good to spend time with you. Thanks for a few minutes today.
Anytime, Schmitty.